I found out my girlfriend had broken up with me when a stranger asked why I was still sleeping with my ex. The problem was, I didn't have an ex. I had Hannah. We'd been together for 4 years, lived in the same apartment, and she'd kissed me goodbye that morning. So I laughed. Then he showed me his phone. And that's how I found out I'd apparently been single for 3 weeks. Hannah knew. Her friends knew. Her coworkers knew. I was the only person who didn't know my own relationship had ended. And the reason she kept coming home to me was worse than the breakup itself. I met the guy at a bar near my office. His name was Matt, although I didn't know that when he first walked over. I'd gone out with my brother after work. Nothing special. 2 beers, maybe some food, then home. Matt kept looking at me. Eventually, my brother noticed too. I remember joking that maybe I owed the guy money. Then Matt came over. He knew my name. That immediately made me uncomfortable. He asked if I was Ryan, then looked at me like he wasn't sure whether he should continue. I thought he knew me through work. Instead, he asked why I was still seeing Hannah. I told him because she was my girlfriend. He looked genuinely confused. Not amused. Not smug. Confused. That's when he asked why I was still sleeping with my ex. I laughed because I thought he'd mixed me up with someone else. Then he took out his phone. There was a group photo from a birthday party. I recognized Hannah immediately. She was standing beside her best friend Jess, holding a drink and smiling. Nothing strange about that. Then Matt zoomed in on the comments. Someone had written, "Single Hannah is finally back." Hannah had liked it. 3 weeks earlier. I felt my face get hot. I still tried to explain it. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe her friend was drunk. Maybe Hannah liked the comment without reading it. Even now, writing that down makes me feel pathetic. But when you've loved someone for 4 years, your brain doesn't accept betrayal immediately. It negotiates. Matt showed me another photo. Then another. In one of them, Hannah was sitting beside a man I didn't recognize. His hand was resting on her knee. I stared at his hand. Not his face. His hand. I remember noticing he wore a silver watch. That's the kind of useless detail your brain keeps when something hurts badly enough. Matt looked uncomfortable. He clearly hadn't expected to be the person telling me any of this. Apparently, Hannah had been telling people we'd broken up for weeks. Not that we were having problems. Not that we were taking space. Broken up. She told her coworkers first. Then her friends. By the time of Jess's birthday party, everyone thought I was gone. Except every night, Hannah came home to me. I didn't finish my beer. My brother offered to drive me home, but I said no. I needed the walk. It took almost an hour. The entire way, I kept trying to find the exact moment our relationship had supposedly ended. There wasn't one. 3 weeks earlier, we'd ordered Chinese food and watched a terrible documentary about some family living off-grid. The next morning, Hannah complained that I'd used her shampoo. 2 days later, we had sex. A week after that, we booked a restaurant for our anniversary. I checked the dates on my phone while I walked. I needed the timeline to be wrong. It wasn't. The night Hannah publicly became single, she texted me from Jess's party saying she loved me. She sent a heart after it. I still have the message. I don't know why. Maybe I keep it because I need proof that I wasn't imagining our relationship. That sounds insane. But after what happened, I started questioning everything. When I got home, Hannah was asleep. She was on my side of the bed. She did that when I stayed out late. I used to find it cute. That night, I stood in the doorway and looked at her for a long time. I expected to feel angry. Mostly, I felt embarrassed. There were people I'd had dinner with who apparently knew I was single before I did. People had probably felt sorry for me. Maybe they'd laughed. I wondered how many times Hannah had walked into our apartment after telling someone I no longer existed. Then climbed into bed beside me. I didn't wake her. I slept on the sofa. The next morning, she came downstairs wearing one of my shirts. That nearly broke me. Not because of the shirt, because she looked normal. She made coffee. She complained about the weather. She asked why I'd slept downstairs. I watched her moving around our kitchen and realized she had no idea that I knew. And I did something I'm still not proud of. I said nothing. For the next 2 days, I watched my own girlfriend pretend to be my girlfriend. I wanted to see how far she'd take it. She kissed me. She asked what I wanted for dinner. She sent me a stupid video from work. Every normal thing she did made me feel worse. Because it meant this wasn't confusion. Hannah knew exactly how to act like she loved me. On the second night, she fell asleep beside me with her phone on the pillow. The screen lit up. I saw Jess's name. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't need to. The preview was enough. Does Ryan still not know? I lay beside Hannah until morning. I don't think I slept for a second. Because now I knew something Matt didn't. Hannah wasn't just lying about our breakup. Her friends knew I was still living with her. They knew I still thought we were together. And they were helping her keep it that way. I spent the next morning pretending I hadn't seen that message. I brushed my teeth beside Hannah. I drove to work. I answered one of her texts about dinner. And the whole time, one sentence kept running through my head. Does Ryan still not know? There was a still in there. That's what got me. It meant this wasn't something Hannah had decided yesterday. There had been conversations about me. Updates. People checking whether I had figured out my own life yet. I felt like the punchline to a joke everyone else had already heard. At lunch, I looked through Hannah's Instagram again. Not because I wanted to torture myself. I was trying to understand when I disappeared. I went back 6 months. Then 4. Then 2. The last photo of us together was from a wedding in May. After that, nothing. There were photographs from places we'd gone together. A restaurant I paid for. A weekend in Brighton. The park near our apartment. But I wasn't in any of them. I had taken half the pictures. That realization hurt in a way I wasn't ready for. Hannah hadn't suddenly erased me 3 weeks ago. She'd been building a version of her life without me for months. I just hadn't noticed because I was standing behind the camera. That afternoon, I called Matt. He'd given my brother his number before we left the bar. I asked how he knew Hannah. Apparently, he'd met her at Jess's birthday. He wasn't the man in the photograph. That man's name was Daniel. Matt didn't know much about him, but he remembered Hannah being introduced as newly single. Newly single. I hated those words. They made our 4 years sound like a subscription she'd canceled. Matt told me something else. Hannah had talked about me that night. Not by name. She'd mentioned an ex who was having a hard time accepting the breakup. I had to sit down when I heard that. Because suddenly, I understood why Sophie had looked at me like that in the coffee shop. Hannah hadn't just told people we'd broken up. She'd prepared them for the possibility that I might say we hadn't. If I showed up somewhere and called her my girlfriend, I wouldn't expose her lie. I'd prove her story. I'd be the desperate ex who couldn't let go. I don't think I've ever felt that trapped before. Every version of the truth made me look insane. I wanted to call Jess. I wanted to message Sophie. I wanted to post every photograph, every text, every receipt from the last 3 weeks. Instead, I went back to work. I sat at my desk and did absolutely nothing for almost 2 hours. I kept thinking about the ring. I'd bought it 6 weeks earlier. Hannah didn't know. At least, I don't think she did. I'd spent months pretending I wasn't interested in what kind of jewelry she liked. I even asked Jess for help. That's another detail that makes me sick now. Jess helped me choose the ring. She knew I was planning to propose. Then she helped Hannah convince everyone we'd broken up. I left work early. On the drive home, I decided I was going to confront Hannah. No games. No watching. I just wanted the truth. Then I walked into our apartment and saw 2 suitcases near the front door. For one stupid second, I thought she'd figured out I knew. I thought she was leaving. They weren't hers. They belonged to her sister. Hannah told me her sister was staying with us for a few nights because there was a problem at her apartment. Normally, I wouldn't have questioned it. But nothing felt normal anymore. Her sister barely looked at me. That was enough. I started noticing everything. The way they stopped talking when I entered the kitchen. The way Hannah kept her phone face down. The way her sister looked genuinely uncomfortable whenever Hannah touched me. I lasted until dinner. Then I asked Hannah how long we'd been broken up. I didn't plan the question. It just came out. Her face didn't change immediately. Her sister's did. That's how I knew I'd finally stepped into the room everyone else had been standing in for weeks. Hannah tried to act confused. I didn't argue. I showed her the birthday photograph. Then the comment. Then I told her about Matt. I expected tears. Maybe anger. I expected her to finally crack. Instead, Hannah looked relieved. That's the part one can't forget. My girlfriend looked relieved that I knew she'd broken up with me. She admitted she'd told people we weren't together. But she kept insisting it wasn't what I thought. Apparently, she hadn't known how to end things with me yet, so she'd started telling other people first. She said she needed time to make it real in her own head. I almost believed that. Then I asked why she was still sleeping with me. Why we'd had sex. Why we had anniversary reservations. Why she'd told me she loved me. She cried. I didn't. I think I'd gone past that point. Hannah said she was scared of losing me completely. I remember staring at her and thinking how selfish that sounded. She wanted to be single everywhere except inside our apartment. She wanted the freedom of leaving me without having to experience me being gone. And somehow I was supposed to feel sorry for her. Then I asked about Daniel. Hannah went quiet. That silence told me enough. She admitted she'd kissed him at Jess's birthday. Only kissed him. I didn't believe her. Maybe that makes me bitter. I don't care anymore. I asked if Daniel knew she still lived with me. He didn't. Of course he didn't. To Daniel, I was the unstable ex. To Hannah's coworkers, I was the sad ex. To her friends, I was the idiot who still didn't know. And to Hannah, I was apparently whatever she needed me to be when she came home. I went upstairs and started packing. Hannah followed me. She cried harder when she saw the suitcase than she had during the entire conversation. I thought that was almost funny. She'd spent 3 weeks telling people I'd left. Now I was actually leaving, and she couldn't handle it. Then she said something that stopped me. She told me I couldn't move out yet. Not that she didn't want me to. That I couldn't. I asked why. For the first time that night, Hannah looked genuinely scared. Then her sister started crying downstairs. And I realized Daniel wasn't the reason they'd both been acting strange. There was something else. Something Hannah's entire family already knew. And apparently, whatever she'd been doing for the last 3 weeks depended on me continuing to believe we were still together. I didn't finish packing. I hate admitting that. After everything Hannah had done, one scared look was still enough to make me stop and listen. 4 years doesn't disappear because you finally catch someone lying. Sometimes it just makes you easier to lie to one last time. Hannah sat on the bedroom floor while I stood beside the open suitcase. Her sister was downstairs. I could hear her crying. And suddenly the whole apartment felt wrong. Hannah told me she'd lost her job 2 months earlier. I thought I'd misunderstood her. Every morning, she'd still gotten dressed. She still left around 8. She still complained about meetings and coworkers and her boss. I'd listened to entire stories about a job she no longer had. For 8 weeks, Hannah had been leaving our apartment and sitting in coffee shops, libraries, sometimes her sister's place. I asked where the money was coming from. That's when everything finally started making sense. It was coming from me. Not directly. Hannah hadn't stolen from my bank account. Somehow, that distinction mattered to her. I'd been covering more of our expenses for months because she'd told me work had changed her bonus structure. Rent, groceries, utilities, most dinners. I thought I was helping my girlfriend through a rough period. What I was actually doing was financing the life of someone who'd already told everyone she was single. I felt physically sick. But even that wasn't the reason she needed me to stay. Hannah had applied for an apartment. A nice one. Much nicer than anything she could afford without a job. On the application, she'd listed her old salary. She'd also listed me. Not as a tenant. As her guarantor. I remember sitting on the edge of our bed and feeling completely empty. I hadn't signed anything. Hannah knew that. Her sister knew that. Jess knew something was happening, although I still don't know how much. Hannah had submitted documents using information she'd taken from files in our apartment. My income. My employer. An old payslip. She told herself she'd fix it before anyone contacted me. That was apparently the plan. Get a new job. Move into the apartment. End things with me properly. Then remove me from whatever paperwork she could. It sounds insane because it was insane. But Hannah had been living inside that lie for so long that she explained it like a delayed phone bill. The apartment company had started verifying the application. Someone might call me. Someone might write to our address. And Hannah needed me there because she was terrified I'd find out before she had another job. That's why she hadn't broken up with me. Not really. She needed access to our mail. She needed access to my documents. More than anything, she needed me calm. The fake relationship wasn't about love. It was crowd control. I think that's when I finally broke. Not when I saw Daniel's hand on her knee. Not when I learned she'd called me her ex. Not even when she admitted she'd kissed him. It was realizing how useful my love had been to her. I trusted Hannah, so I didn't check bills. I didn't question why she needed help with rent. I didn't ask why she suddenly cared when the mail arrived. Every good thing I thought I was doing as her boyfriend had made me easier to manage. I started crying. I wish I had some stronger version of myself to describe here. I don't. I sat on the floor beside my suitcase and cried in front of the woman who had done all of this. And the worst part is Hannah tried to hold me. Instinctively, I almost let her. My body still recognized her as home before my brain could remember what she'd done. I moved away. That hurt more than I expected. Hannah kept apologizing. She said she never planned for things to get this far. I believed that part. I don't think she woke up one morning and designed some huge plan to destroy me. I think she told one lie because she was ashamed she'd lost her job. Then another because she needed money. Then another because she wanted an apartment. Then she met Daniel. At some point, telling everyone we'd broken up became easier than actually facing me. The problem with Hannah was never that she didn't feel guilty. She felt guilty constantly. She just always found a way to make her guilt someone else's problem. I left that night. Her sister watched me carry my suitcase through the living room. She couldn't look at me. I didn't say goodbye. I stayed with my brother. The next morning, I called the apartment company. Then I called a solicitor. I sent them everything I had. Messages, dates, bank transfers, proof that I hadn't agreed to guarantee anything. Hannah called me 23 times that day. I counted. I didn't answer. On the 24th call, her sister used her own phone. I answered that one. I don't know why. She told me Hannah was falling apart. And for a second, I felt guilty. That's how deep it went. My first instinct was still to worry about her. Then my brother asked me a question. He wanted to know when Hannah had last worried about me. I couldn't answer. The apartment application was canceled. I wasn't held responsible for anything. Hannah eventually admitted she'd used my information without permission. I don't know what happened between her and Daniel. I stopped asking. Jess sent me a long apology. I read the first few lines and deleted it. There was nothing she could say that would give me back those 3 weeks. The ring was harder. I'd hidden it in an old camera bag because Hannah never touched my camera stuff. I found it when I went back for the rest of my things. I sat in my car with that box in my hand for almost an hour. 6 weeks earlier, I'd imagined giving it to her. I knew where. I knew what I'd say. I'd even worried I'd cry and ruin the moment. I did cry. Just in a car park outside a jewelry store while returning it. The woman behind the counter asked if Hannah had said no. I told her we'd changed our minds. Even then, I couldn't say it properly. Hannah hadn't said no to marrying me. She'd done something stranger. She'd ended our relationship in front of everyone, except the one person who was actually in it. Sometimes I wonder how long she would have kept going if Matt hadn't recognized me. Another month? 6 months? Would she have moved into that apartment and slowly stopped coming home? Would I have stood in our kitchen making her coffee while everyone else waited for me to finally understand? I don't know. That's the part that still keeps me awake. I spent 4 years thinking love meant knowing someone. Now I think you can know exactly how a person takes their coffee, how they sleep, how they laugh when they're genuinely happy, and still have no idea who they become when telling you the truth gets inconvenient.